Good afternoon, grade 12s. We are going to look at our English on language paper 2, which was just written this morning. Our 80 marks finally came through today, and we are going to go through the paper and discuss our possible answers and what we expected from you as the learners and what you must have touched on or tried to avoid. Poetry section was our 30 marks, whereby they gave us our 4 prescribed poems. We dealt with Sonnet 130 today, talked to the Peach Tree, the Shipwreck, and Poem of Return. Beautiful poems, indeed. And if you were well prepared and you used the booklets that were provided, it was a beautiful paper to go through. I hope you managed to sail through, but we're going to get straight into finding out our expectations. Let's go to the essay question, which is our Sonnet 130. All right. Okay. These were our poems that we're going to discuss today. All right, let's go to question 1. Question 1 is Sonnet 130, and it says, the speaker mocks the manner in which women are presented in traditional love poetry. Discuss the extent to which you agree with the statement with close reference to imagery. They even highlight for us tone and structure. So we expected a 3-phase discussion whereby you discuss the imagery, which are the figures of speech, and then we're able also to discuss the tone and also discuss the structure of the poem. So let's get straight to it. We have this poem whereby Shakespeare satirizes the conventional use of extreme praise. He uses inverted compliments. Those are our anti-compliments that we have. So we expected people to be discussing the metaphors, the similes. So as such, negative metaphors were there, negative similes were there. So they are the ones that we were looking at when we're coming in. Nothing like the sun. We started off with that one, which means the eyes are not as bright as the sun. We also have the lips. Lips are not as red as coral. The skin is dull. Her hair is wiry. So now we are looking at these inverted compliments that he gives. He continues and says her cheeks are pale, her breath is unpleasant, her voice is unpleasant. My apologies, I'm having a cold, so please bear with me because of my voice, as it is a bit scratchy. All right, her walk, very heavy. So these are the insults that we are looking at, whereby he is bringing in the issue of that she is not the beautiful, typical woman that is presented in a traditional love poem. The first 12 lines of the poem, which is the octave, are actually almost insulting because she does not meet the standards of beauty. So he even repeats not, nothing to satirize the praise that we're talking about. Now we come in and understand that instead of perfume, her bed smells. Instead of snow, she's done. Her cheeks are not pink as roses. So these are the things that we're coming in for you to discuss, to say, he does not use the conventional extreme praise that is used in traditional poetry. That's why he uses the inverted compliments that we were listing. So we expected a discussion of those. Even though we discussed 4, it would have been enough, but I'm just highlighting all the inverted compliments that we expected to have. Hyperbole was also supposed to be discussed. And we're looking at the concept of ideal beauty, in describing a lover. That's why he goes the inverted way and is hyperbolic about the mistress's plain physical features. So we were looking at inverted negative metaphors, negative similes, hyperbole, repetition. That's what we're expecting you to give us there when we're coming to the discussion of the imagery. When we're coming to the tone, we were supposed to be very clear that in the first 12 lines, it is mocking because he shows the unrealistic metaphors that he uses in undermining the mistress's beauty. So the tone now is mocking in the first 12 lines, teasing, playful. Those are the tones that could have come in, but it changes in the final line because it becomes a tone of adoration and sincere to show that the woman, his mistress, is not like the conventional traditional love women in the traditional love poets. He's sincere about his love for her in the last 2 lines, and therefore that's what you could have given us there. The tone was supposed to be discussed according to the structure, which we're going to next, because when we come to the structure, we are talking about specifying exactly, whereby you must be clear that you are talking of an Italian, a Shakespearean sonnet, my apologies, a Shakespearean sonnet, whereby you have quatrains, 3 quatrains, whereby there's exaggeration of the mistress's plain features, going to the rhyming couplet in 13 to 14, and shown by poetic 10, which is a volta in line 12. So those are the things that we expected you to give. Quatrains, 4 lines each, which discuss the different features, and the rhyming couplet with a whereby he specifies his genuine and sincere love for the mistress, and yet was supposed to be discussed as well, as that is the change to the poem, the volta, as we said. He denies that she has heavenly qualities. His love is sincere. So his love is rare because his mistress is also rare and unique. And as any, that she has been misrepresented by exaggerated comparisons. So plainly, simply, he loves her for who she is. He embraces her flaws. He loves her just the way that she is. So those are the things that we expected you to discuss in the imagery, in the tone, and in the structure. A beautiful essay it was. I think this is a question that has been dominating in 2 or so booklets that came out recently after the prelims, I believe. So I think this question was teaching us that whatever material we're giving, we're supposed to go through it thoroughly. Same for your paper 3 that is coming up. Please go through your material that is presented to you, because we are not seeing anything new in this paper. Everything that is in this paper is everything that we've been given and that we are having in our possessions, even at home and in our phones. All right, let's go to Talk to the Peach Tree, which is the next one. Okay, Talk to the Peach Tree by Sipho Sepamla was a context question. Let's go to the discussion of the word stench. Let's go to line 14. There it is. Ask how the stench is like down there. So remember, stench is a smell. So when we're coming in, we're talking about a smell. Therefore, it says, explain the use of the word stench in line 14. This is definitely the smell of something rotten, rubbish. Rotten. But now this is in reference to, this is how the Black people were regarded. Black people were regarded as rubbish and rotten by the people in power, authorities, and therefore the rubbish that has been thrown away, and therefore creating a bad smell. So that's why you had to connect rubbish heap. So there was a connection between rubbish heap and stench. But if you still discuss stench in isolation, it was too much, so you still get away with it. Because we are taking from thrown away, Black people being treated as trash, and therefore that's where now they are now associated with a bad smell by the authorities. So either way, it was still correct. It will be correct. Account for the repetition of the phrase, let's talk throughout the poem. Repetition is emphasis for the agency. It highlights the agency. It's emphasis and agency. Definitely. So we must be able to account for this one because it really is talking about the agency of the need to talk and have open communication or channels of communication being opened up so that there can be solutions and a way forward. So we definitely had to talk about that one. It's an anaphora. So we had to discuss the anaphora and specify its emphasis about invitation to talk, invitation to open channels of communication. So that's why we have to take it as an anaphora because it's repeated several times. Casually, it's casual language as well. So you could have brought that in to say casually. It becomes more inviting and therefore it will be more understood that there is a need for communication to happen or channels of communication to open. Refer to lines 11 to 12. And it says, talk to the paralyzing heat in the air, inquire how long the mercilessness will last. And they say, identify the figure of speech used in line 11, paralyzing heat. That's a personification. That's our 1 mark here. And then it also says, comment on the effectiveness of the image in these 2 lines now, which means we're going to talk on paralyzing and mercilessness because we had to put them together. We are talking about the harsh laws. We're talking about the brutality of the apartheid regime. So when the pressures and the brutality, their extent of brutality that is extended on the blacks by the apartheid regime or the harsh laws being extended way suffocating for the blacks. So that's what you were supposed to focus on there. Refer to lines 19 to 21. It says, we are going here now. Come on. Let's talk to the devil himself. It's about time. Critically discuss how these lines convey the central message of the poem. A central message of the poem is the need to exhaust all platforms of communication, peaceful platforms of communication. And therefore, when we are coming to let's talk, come on, it's an encouragement to speak directly to the powers who have been oppressing the blacks for too long, as the time is right, the time is finally come for the open channels of communication to happen for peaceful talks. That's our top to the pitch tree. So which means we're going to focus on encouragement. We're going to talk about let's peacefully sit down and talk. And it's happened for a long time. Let's finally face it. So that's what we mean by encouragement. But the central message is need to exhaust all channels of peaceful communication. That's what we're focusing on here. Need to exhaust all channels of peaceful communication. That's our talk to the peach tree. Very straightforward answers, very specific. We go on to the next one, which is poem of return. Okay, shipwreck, sorry. Shipwreck is the next question, not poem of return. We are on shipwreck. Oh, beautiful. All right. Identify and explain the mood in line 1. When we come to line 1, this gives us our mood. Oh, this question has been dominating everywhere. Mid-year, prelim. The great storm is over. Your answers are clear there because we're talking about relief. We're talking about delight. Those are the things that are coming in. Relief, delight are definitely coming in. Great violent storm is over, finally over. They survived. So that's what we are talking about when it comes to explain the mood. They are relieved that the violent storm is over. They are delighted that the storm is finally over. They are relieved that they survived, that 4 have survived. Refer to line 7, neighbor and friend and bridegroom. Neighbor, friend, bridegroom is what we're focusing on there. So when we're talking of neighbor, friend, and bridegroom, we are talking of familiarity. It's personal now. Why? Because we're talking of it brings familiarity, makes it personal because the deceased were members of the community. So they were known by all in the community, which means they were attached to some members of the community. And therefore, that's what we're touching on. It was 2 marks. So we're just talking on familiarity, brings familiarity to their identity, makes it personal as well. So identity was also coming in. So which means we could have touched on familiarity. We touched also on makes it personal and also gives them identity. So those were the answers that were possible there. As long as you discussed, you'll be fine. Refer to lines 3 to 4. 40 gone down together into the boiling sand. Identify the figure of speech used in these lines. Euphemism is coming in. Euphemism is definitely coming in when we're talking about gone down. That is euphemism. There we go. Boiling sand is also another answer, which is the metaphor. When we talk about the figure of speech, then they say comment on the effectiveness of this image of 40 gone down together into the boiling sand. The sand has been compared as being churned up by the waters of the storm, which moves, it makes it less blunt that 40 lives have been lost, and therefore that's what we're also taking there. And then it says these lines as a conclusion to the poem. Emphasizes the silence of the adults and the children. Why? There is no empty platitude that will offer comfort. It is effective because the trauma, the pain, numbs them and instills silence in them. As a result, it becomes emphasized as there is no relief that can be given. The pity, or there's not enough pity that can come in to offer comfort for this tragedy that has happened. So that's what we were taking here. Silence was our key word, number 1. Waves reply. There's no one who will answer or say anything as the grief is too much to bear, and therefore there is not much that they can say. No further questions. Children are also silenced. They do understand, and therefore it's in shock. They cannot respond or ask any further questions. The adults also cannot answer any further questions because of the shock. Any of those was what we're expecting. We go to question 4, poem of return. Poem of return. It says, explain the use of the word silence. This one in line 1. Right. We are talking about in the context of the poem. Silence has 2 connotations there. So you just had to give one that you explain properly. I believe when we're in class, we discuss issues of isolation. He's in a foreign country and alone. Loneliness is also another one. So when you say isolation, we're talking about foreign place, language barriers. And then when we're coming to loneliness, we're talking about no contact with his family, no contact with friends. So that's what we are talking about in this silence answer. Any of those that you manage to discuss, it will be acceptable. And then it says, account for the use of ellipsis in line 10. He says, when I return from the land of exile and silence, no, do not bring me flowers. There's emphasis that has happened already by the no, and therefore it means that he's repeating it for the second time, and therefore this is an unfinished thought that can be finished by the reader in understanding why he does not want the flowers, which means we must be understanding why he doesn't want flowers and why he doesn't want a celebration. So any of those, refer to lines 3 to 4, it says 4.3. Bring me rather all the Jews' tears of dawn, which means dramas. Identify the figure of speech in these lines. Definitely it's personification. Dawns are personified in 4.32. Dawns are personified as weeping to the tragedy that took place as a result of colonization and exile. So it is the one that is the witness to the tragedies that are happening. So that's why it's witnessing. Nature is traumatized because of what it is witnessing. And then refer to line 11 to 14. Bring me only just this, the last wish of heroes fallen at daybreak, with a wingless stone in hand and a threat of anger snaking from their eyes. Critically discuss the how the final stanza reinforces the central message of the poem. A remembrance of sacrifices made is what is important, not any display of any form. So it does not want to be remembered with flowers, but rather he wants to be remembered for what he was fighting for. There is anger in that last stanza because the heroes died before seeing change. So the people who started the movement died before they could see the change. And that's why now it's reinforcing the message that go to the unseen poem, which is question 5. We are talking about the abundant mind. It says, account for the use of the word abundant in the title and line 1 of the poem. Right, when we are talking about abundant, we're talking of deserted, no longer in use, discontinued use, so unused. So any of those, that's what we're talking about. So which means the mine is no longer functional. It has been closed, shut down. Any of those was fine. Refer to line 5 to 8. Here is the trail along which used to pass the workers to and fro a narrow track that winds away among the bush and grass, but those who trod it will no more come back. We are talking of a set tone. Workers, a lot of workers that used to be there are no longer there. And therefore, there's nostalgia coming in, remembering back to the time as if it's still now. So any of those could have been possible, I believe. We go on, refer to line 9 to 12. Identify the figure of speech in line 9 to 12. Time with slow hands shall from the sin anew repair the gashes in the wounded soul and cover up the last remaining clue to a poor, useless record of men's toil. Right. It says, identify the figure of speech in these lines. Personification, time is personified as being slow. So that's what we have. Time is given qualities of being slow. So that is personification for us. And we're saying, how does it add to the meaning of the poem? It will take time for the pain to subside. And therefore, it will take time for them to bear and cope and heal with the loss that they're experiencing, the deaths that they've experienced as well. So as such, any of those answers could have been possible. Refer to lines 13 to 14. Critically discuss how the diction in these lines contributes to the central idea of the poem. Your response should include 2 examples of diction. There were many we could have used. 13 to, we could have used mound. We could have used grave. We could have talked about hopes, buried. Where hopes were, yeah, any of those could have been given. Mound is giving connotations of an elevation of a burial site. And therefore, when you say, and this is the mound they built, where hopes were high shall be a grave where those hopes buried lie. Death has marked this place, this abandoned mine. Miners' lives were lost, and therefore we're now looking at not only is it the deaths of the miners, but also the deaths of their hopes, the deaths of their livelihood. So as such, that's why hopes are buried as well. So which means the remainder of the people or survivors, their hopes were buried with the co-workers that passed away and were buried there. So any of those would have come in. So that's what we mean. Their hopes would not have lasted long because of the tragedy and the trauma and the pain and the grief. So that's what we mean. Let's go to the picture of Dorian Gray. Beautiful essay it was. Immorality as a theme, moral decline came in. Finally, I think this is when we are saying we got a question that was very straightforward and was focusing on the clear outline of a theme of moral immorality or moral decay. Dorian Gray's refusal, we have two issues that we must look at. We're going to discuss refusal to face reality. We're also going to lead. So we must show the connection of how it leads to his moral decline. We are talking about Dorian Gray. So let's go on and say critically discuss the extent to which you agree with the statement. All right. We are going to talk about Dorian's refusal to accept that he will grow old or age is the first one that we must deal with. He refuses to face reality that he will age. So when he is influenced by Lord Henry's philosophy of you will lose this beauty, he now wants to remain old, young forever, and therefore that leads to the Faustian bargain. The Faustian bargain contributes to his moral decline because it's the loss of his soul. So that's why I'm starting with refusal, and then I connect it to what it leads to and to explain the moral decline itself. So which means you're supposed to specify your understanding of refusal, what it leads to, and what is the immorality or moral decline in Dorian that is seen. So loss of soul is his moral decline. So that's the first one that we expected to specify. And then we go on to his self-infatuation, self-absorption. When we say self-absorption, we're talking about how he's so obsessed with his beauty. And that leads to immorality. Hedonism comes in. And therefore, we now get to understand that when he is self-infatuated, he disregards other people, disregards Sybil, disregards Basil, disregards Ellen Campbell, and that leads to immorality in the form of hedonism and moral corruption. We can also talk about his self-absorption, whereby he constantly goes to look at the portrait when he has done something to show that he is obsessed about his other version of himself in the portrait. But that leads to the disfiguring of the portrait now. His moral decline in this instance is the disfiguring of the portrait, becoming uglier, hideous. That's what we mean. And therefore, ultimately leading him to hide it. We're now going on to when he hides it. I believe it's a chain now. When he hides the portrait in the schoolroom, he is in denial of his corruption and the extent of his hedonism. When he hides it in the schoolroom, he continues sinning. He now takes the key, puts it in his breast pocket so that he can be able to be the only one to have access to the portrait. So we realize that now he becomes selfish, vain, and now he is continuously sinning and disregarding any morality on the issues. Also, when we come to the destruction of the portrait in a fit of anger, That is also a refusal to face reality. I believe we can talk about he cannot face the real him that he has turned into, and therefore in anger now that he is corrupt, and therefore when Basil reveals that he does not like what he has become, it becomes difficult for him to face, and then he hates Basil as an escape from dealing with himself. When he escapes, he kills Basil and shifts the blame to Basil from himself, and therefore he makes himself a victim. So those are, there were a lot. I think we've discussed 6 or so already, which means a full essay was coming out, and we were able to account for it. Sybil Vane, I believe when he refuses to acknowledge that he has murdered Basil and has stabbed him to death, he refuses to face reality and now terms him a thing. When he terms him a thing, it means he detaches himself from any familiarity with Basil, and therefore does not want to deal with what Basil has become. When he does so, he doesn't want to face the reality that he has committed murder. Now, what does it lead to? It leads to him moral decline, going to blackmail Alan Campbell. When he blackmails Alan Campbell to dispose of the body, we realize he's immoral. That's corruption. He has no sense of conscience anymore. So those are the possible ones that we could have discussed. So I think when we're coming to this one, we had a lot. We are talking about the portrait. We are talking about self-absorption. We are talking about denial of change to West in him. We are talking about refusal to accept he will age. He will age. We are talking about denial of his corruption, and therefore leading to murder, also leading to his own death as well. So that's what we were talking about. So you just have to find ways of bringing those up and showing that you understand that how does he refuse to face reality, and what does it lead to when it comes to his soul and his moral conscience. So that's what we expected. Let's go to the context. All right. In the context, we having extract A, which was coming from Crucible. This is almost likely like our PLC paper, because we had Sybil Vane as well in the prelim. Okay, let's see what they wanted from us this time. Refer to line 3. It says, "Don't touch me," he cried. "Give 2 reasons for the change in Dorian's feelings towards Sybil." Let's go to line 3. It says, "She put her hand upon his arm and looked into his eyes. He thrust her back. Don't touch me." Disappointment is one of the things that's coming in. Disappointment in her acting on stage. She did not portray her exquisite acting skills and character portrayal. That is why he is disappointed in her and pushes her away. The rejection is what we're talking about, cruel rejection in him, because he does not accept the real Sybil that was on stage. He still wanted the different characters that Sybil portrayed on stage. It says, refer to line 6 to 7. My brother, oh, don't go away from me. My brother, no, never mind. He didn't mean it. he was in jest. It says, suggest why Sybil makes reference to your brother in these lines. Remembrance of the brother's warning and threat. Fears that the brother might have been right, that Prince Charming would play with her emotions and hurt her. And then the brother threatened that he would come back and kill anyone who hurts her. So that's what we were following on. Remember when they're in the park and taking a walk? That is what we are referring to. 7.3, refer to lines 4 to 5. Lines 4 to 5, it says, a lone moan broke her and she flung herself at his feet and lay, she whispered. And then it says, discuss how these lines influence your view of Sybil. Very innocent, so young and inexperienced, naive to an extent of desperation. So that's what we are facing when it comes to Sybil, to say she could not differentiate between true love and that she had for Prince Charming and what Prince Charming had for her. So she failed to distinguish the two. That's why I'm saying young, naive, inexperienced is what is coming in there. And then the next one says, refer to lines 12 to 14. Comment on what these lines reveal about Dorian in the context of the novel as a whole. Lines 12 to 14, we go back a little bit and see what they said. It said, she crouched on the floor like a wounded thing, and Dorian Gray, with his beautiful eyes, looked down at her, and his chiseled lips curled in exquisite disdain. Okay, it says, comment on what these lines reveal about Dorian. So Sybil is a decorative item that she played on stage. So value for Sybil was based on her acting talent and her art. He no longer finds interest in her. I think we realize that it asks us to make a reference to the novel as a whole. In the context, it shows that Dorian only finds interest in a person that serves his purpose. If the person is no use to him, he discards them. And I believe Ellen Campbell in the future is what is coming in to say how he uses Ellen when he no longer needs him, discards of him and so forth. Basil, also the same, discards of him when no longer wants him and his voice of reason. So a lot of discussions could have been done there. All right, let's go to extract B. We were expecting this one. I think we've been fighting with you guys for a long time to say you will always have this question whereby it says place this extract in context. It's from chapter 15. And when we are coming to this extract, this is directly from chapter 14, I believe, whereby Dorian has called in Ellen Campbell to come and dispose of Basil's body and how detached he is to the murder that he has just committed. And then now we are talking about him moving on to Lady Nabarro's dinner party or dinner and going on with his life as if nothing wrong has happened. So that's exactly where it places us. We have to remember the immediate events that lead to this extract. So that's what we are talking about. Murdering of Basil is the first one. Ellen Campbell being blackmailed to dispose the body, going on with his life and going to the dinner party at Lady Nabarro's is what we are referring to. Explain why people in the society think that Dorian is not capable of committing sin. His outward appearance, definitely his outward experience, he still looked the same, young, innocent. That's one of the things that is making society view him as still the same person, still young, still innocent, and therefore judged as incapable of being evil or doing anything wrong, because he still looks the same outwardly due to the Faustian bargain that he made. He's not aging, he's not changing. Refer to line 6 to 7. Lady Nabarro. All right, let's go to line 6 to 7 there. he was rather sorry he had come. He was rather sorry he had come till late in upper row, looking at the great Omulu gilt clock that sprawled in gaudy curves on the mauve draped mantel shelf, exclaimed. The question says, discuss how the description of the clock, this one, the great Omulu gilt clock that sprawled in gaudy caves on the mauve draped mantel shelf. Okay, definitely aesthetism was coming in, exaggerated decorums, expensive antiques, their love for beautiful things was coming in. That's aestheticism. It's an aestheticism question. So you're supposed to link it to the upper class Victorian expensive, antique, of value. So those were the things that we expected there. Refer to lines 10 to 12. It says it was some consolation that Harry was to be there. And when the door opened and he heard his slow musical voice lending charm to some insincere apology, he ceased to feel bored. Using these lines as a starting point, comment on the influence that Lord Henry has on Dorian. Captivating, awakens him, encourages him to become more hedonistic. When you say captivates, he's bored, but when there's Lord Henry, he becomes awake. So Lord Henry awakens him, he entertains him, he captivates him, and therefore encourages him that the hedonistic lifestyle is proper and he must continue doing it. So that's our influence. Refer to lines 4 to 5. He himself, it says, refer to lines 4 to 5. He himself, it says, could not help wondering at the calm of his demeanor and for a moment felt keenly the terrible pleasure of a double life. Based on your knowledge of the novel as a whole, critically discuss the impact that leading a double life has on Dorian. The impact, the first one that we see is he becomes addicted to pleasures. When he becomes addicted to pleasures, he ignores his conscience. But also he changes later on. He lives in terror because his fears now lead him to a state of hysteria and panic. The James Wayne incident, I believe. He has a heavy conscience whereby he has a yearning and an urge to repent so that the portrait can change, as he feels regret when he looks at how degraded the portrait has become. I think also he also resolves to repent and abandon his double life as he wants to make amends for his own corruption. He tries to free himself, but he dies in the process. So that's the things we expected you to discuss. I just gave a majority, but those are the channels of areas that we are focusing on when it comes to the picture of Dorian Gray. That was our 25 marks. And then we move on. Oh, unfortunately, I will not be discussing the life of Pi as it is not been part of my set works, but I will discuss Hamlet because I have taught it before I got to the Crucible that I am currently teaching. All right, let's go to this one, Hamlet. Many of the characters, I believe we have a pattern. We are getting the same easy question for the Hamlet, the Dorian, the Crucible as well. So we expected such. And I think it was easier to manage because we're focusing on dishonorable characteristics and how they cannot be redeemed. So we are going to discuss the characters that we are talking about. I believe Laertes and Hamlet definitely must be discussed because in their drive and need to honor their parents, to honor and seek revenge for the murder of their parents. Unfortunately, they cross boundaries because Hamlet is slow to action. even if he gets the evidence, it does not act until innocent lives are lost. Laertes is very assertive, but very hasty as well. And therefore, that's what we mean when we're talking about these two have some similarities that we cannot ignore, because when we look at how they act in trying to revenge or seek revenge for the murder of their respective fathers, we realize that each of them moves away from a balanced decision-making point. And when it comes to action, it's questionable. Their actions are questionable. We get to understand that honor for Hamlet and Laertes to seek revenge is due. So for them, they want to do so justly, and they want to do what is right. Hamlet, unfortunately, is late in doing what is due in order to revenge the murder of his father, and he kills Polonius in the making. So Polonius mistakenly gets stabbed and is killed while behind the curtain. And therefore, that's what we mean by dishonorable, totally dishonorable, as it amounts to the loss of a life. And when we say about Laertes, we're talking about too quick to act, very fast to act, but does what is wrong by giving in to the treacherous plot by Claudius. And when he does that, the poisoned jewel is what we are talking about, and the sword stabs him as well in the process. So he dies as a result. So that's what we mean by both of them have dishonorable qualities that we cannot ignore in trying to find justice. We're going to talk about Claudius. Claudius, definitely, we're going to talk about dishonorable, was coming in. Claudius kills Hamlet's father so as to get the throne and marries the queen in the process. And therefore, we call that dishonorable as kills his own blood, which is his brother, and therefore brings chaos to Denmark. And that's what we mean when we talk about dishonorable, cannot be redeemed because he's now in command in the new king, though he is not meant to be in the throne. That's what we mean. And then Gertrude also comes in, dishonorable in marrying the brother a short time, and does not grieve the dead king. But what she does is to hastily also marry, which leads to the consequences of the son Hamlet dying, Claudius dying, Polonius dying. So that's what we mean when we talk about dishonorable acts that cannot be redeemed. So a lot of characters were applicable for this one. A lot of them were applicable, whereby we're talking about Laertes, definitely. So we're bringing in Laertes, we're bringing in Hamlet, we're bringing in Claudius, we are bringing in Gertrude, we are bringing in Polonius as well, dishonorable, being the spy. Talk about him. You just had to choose the ones that you think you could have discussed properly and brought it out to show that their actions are questionable because their actions are bringing consequences that cannot be reversed. And that's what we mean by that. Laertes, I believe, yes, when we're talking about Laertes, I believe the father, when we talk about Polonius, it was dishonorable of him now to be to send the son away, to send Laertes away, and therefore be spying on him as well, which shows that he does not trust his own son. So that's what we can bring in Laertes as well, allowing being a spy, and as it leads to his own downfall, which is his own death. by being stabbed by Hamlet. So that's what we are talking about when it comes to this one. Okay, let's go to the context of Hamlet, whereby we have extract E, which is coming from Act 3, Scene 3, right in the middle of the play somewhere. Okay, it says the first one referred to line 1 to 2. Okay, line 1 to 2 says, I like him not, nor stands it safe with us to let his madness range. Okay, it says, the question says, what has prompted Claudius to utter these words about Hamlet? Skepticism is one of them. Claudius is skeptical about Hamlet coming back, as he is trying to keep him away as possible of not finding out the truth of what happened to his father, and therefore uncertainty around Hamlet when it comes to Claudius, doesn't trust Hamlet. Those are the answers that we are talking about when he says skeptical. And then it says, refer to lines 8 to 11. We will ourselves, 9, 8 to 11, it says, explain what these lines reveal about Guildenstern. Loyal, realistic, practical. I think those are the answers that we are talking about when it comes to him. Willing to serve, fearful as well. So we are talking about loyalty there. Explain how Polonius, in lines 18 to 20, of how Polonius's plan, as described in these lines, is typical of his behavior elsewhere in the play. Which ones are we referring to now? Okay, it says lines 18 to 20, okay. 18 to 20, it's here. All right. My lord is going to his mother's closet behind the arras. I'll convey myself to hear the process. I'll warrant she'll take him home. All right. It says, how is this Polonius's plan? How is Polonius's plan? Is described in these lines, typical of his behavior elsewhere in the play. Oh, the spying that he does for his son, when he sends Reynaldo to go spy on his son and be subtle about it, and even provoke him if need be. I believe that's an incident that was coming in, the spying of his son, definitely. Refer to lines 22 to 23. Tis meet that 22 to 23, let's go see. 22, it says, tis meet that some more audience than a mother, since nature makes them partial, should offer here the speech of vantage. Okay, all right. And then the question says, based on your knowledge of the plays, a whole comment on Gertrude's loyalty towards Hamlet. At first, she tried to protect him. I believe she was overprotective of the son. She was loyal to Claudius, but when she starts to realize certain things, her loyalty shifts to her son. Great love protects him from the king and shields him, makes excuses for him. I believe we're showing great love of a mother towards the son when it comes to Gertrude's loyalty towards Hamlet. Although we're talking of betrayal at the beginning, that she married the brother just in a short space of time after the funeral, but her loyalty does shift. So I believe that we're taking it from what she is at the beginning, where she shows loyalty to Claudius, but shifts it towards Hamlet when she gets to realize Hamlet's pain and dilemma as the play progresses. And then it says, refer to lines 29 to 33. Oh, my offense is rank, it smells to heaven. Okay, it hath the primal ethics case upon it. a brother's anger. Oh, it's this one, sorry. Where it says, oh, my offenses rank its smells to heaven. It has the primal Hades case upon it. Says line 29. Yes. Though inclination be as sharp as well, my stronger guilt defeats my strong intent. And like a man to double business bound. Okay. 233. Okay, we're stopping here. It says intent. Okay, we're stopping here. And then the question says, discuss how these lines influence your attitude towards Claudius. Hypocritical. We are going to talk about that. Hypocritical, whereby can I not? Oh, it says discuss influence your attitude towards Claudius. Yes, is acting brave, considerate to the whole of Denmark, yet he is confessing about murdering his own brother. He has a conscience here. I believe we're talking about a conscience, whereby he realizes that his immoral deed or act is not going to be looked upon kindly by the heavens on him. So I believe we are talking about a conscience because it is a confession. He does confess. So that's what we are bringing in when it comes to him confessing on his own of what he has done and how he has made that his own brother and how he realizes that it has a curse on it because heaven is not looking lightly on him. So that's what we mean. All right, let's go to the second extract. Extract F. Places extract in context. This is from Act 5, Scene 2. This is after Horatio. Hamlet confesses to Horatio of his awareness of Claudius' plot to kill him, to have him killed. Yes, definitely. So this is after the conversation that Hamlet has with Claudius and reveals that he knows the truth, that Claudius has made attempts of him to have him killed. And I think it's the issue of when the switching of the letters is is revealed that he switched the letters and instead of him being hanged, he had to swap the names. So that's what it's 2 marks anyway. It's not 3. Refer to lines 2 to 5. In lines 2 to 5. Give me your pardon, say I've done you wrong, but pardon not as you are a gentleman. This princess knows, and you must needs have heard how I am punished with a sword destruction. All right. All right. If you're a director of the production of Hamlet, how do you instruct the actor to deliver these lines? I have done you wrong. Humble tone, definitely. Body language and tone, humble tone. Sincere tone. Maybe he clasps his hands together to show pleading. A pleading tone is also applicable. Any of those would have been fine, but his pleading is showing sincerity so that to Claudius it looks as if he is sincere and he is apologizing. Okay, and then the next one it says refer to lines 27 to 29. But till that, but till that time, I do receive your offered love like love and will not wrong it. Comment on the irony in these lines. Disciple hatred, I think it's coming out. That's Laertes. Yeah, it's Sapo hatred because he knows that he wants to kill him, but now it's a pretense of trying to pretend as if they are making peace. and accepts the love like love. Unfortunately, the irony is he only realizes when he's dying that Hamlet was genuine. Refer to lines 30 to 31. I embrace it, he says, freely and will these brothers wager frankly play? Give us the falls, come on. Critically discuss the change in Hamlet's attitude towards Laertes in the play. He wants to attain and gain Laertes' forgiveness, willing to do anything to make Laertes forgive him. And I believe also it was a peaceful one, whereby he was also willing to accept death if it was going to happen, as he realizes the extent of Claudius wanting him dead, and of those were acceptable. We cannot really account for his change, but he wanted forgiveness from Laertes, definitely, for killing his father. And then, unfortunately, I am jumping over to the Crucible, as it's the one that I have been teaching for a while. I taught Hamlet a while ago, that's why I still love it and remember it. The Crucible, men of the characters, it's the same question if you realize, totally dishonorable and cannot be redeemed. We have to discuss the characters that we have to bring in. I think we are clear on this one, that when we talk about dishonor, we're talking about their weaknesses and their flaws that lead to their downfall. Obviously, we are going to talk about John Proctor. We cannot leave him out. Let's just list them first. John Proctor is the first one. And then we have Abigail. We cannot leave her out. Yes, we have Paris. We cannot leave him out. Hale also comes in somewhere. I'm just going to touch on those for a little while. So you had a lot that we could have used to just discuss. John Proctor, let's start with John Proctor. Dishonorable, having an affair with Abigail. Has an affair, hides it from Elizabeth. I believe we have to touch on that one. He's dishonorable as he's selfish and lies to Elizabeth in the process to cover himself. So that's what we mean by John Proctor being dishonorable. And then we're talking about Abigail. Abigail is immoral. Abigail is immoral, deceiving. There's a disregard of others, accuses, brings in a lot of people's names on false accusations so as to cover her immorality, connives having Elizabeth arrested. The charm, I believe, also comes in there of wanting Elizabeth dead. That is what we call dishonorable. Paris is a preacher, but driven by so much self-interest and self-absorption. Status and reputation are important to him more than anything. He encourages the trials to continue. Yet, the only reason is that he wants to maintain his reputation. So which means it will move the attention away from him, and therefore he can be able to be safe when it comes to his reputation. So I think that's something that we blame him for, when he doesn't want his family to be implicated. He tries by all means to cover for his family's involvement so that his reputation can maintain. That is what we call dishonor. Hale, I believe we also talk about him. Despite his devotion to his work, he is a tragic hero after all, because his pride definitely brings dishonor to his job. A reputable man, but now when he realizes the truth and does not speak out in time, leading to a tumultuous event of the trials, we have to blame him for that one. And we need to talk about that because at the end of the day, he could have stopped it from the beginning, and it could have saved a lot of wrongdoings happening. So those are the dishonorable qualities that we're bringing when it comes to the Crucible. And we cannot deny that their actions actually, we can also add Danforth. Yes, I was thinking of Danforth as well. Danforth is coming in. We had a lot of characters to choose from. The essays were beautiful this time around because they gave you a lot of options. When it comes to Danforth, I think we're talking about, he turns the court case in his favor. He is a powerful man. He's able to control people like Proctor. But at the end of the day, he uses the court for his own benefit. His twisted methods of manipulation, he manipulates characters like Proctor. So I believe when we talk about him, he is one of the few people who actually could have done the right thing, but he doesn't because he wants to use the court for his own purposes. He uses his power for his own good and personal motives, and that's what we call dishonorable. So he had a lot of options. He had a lot of, four could have done your discussion beautifully so that you could have been able to bring it across. He had a lot to say on Abigail, so he could have even gone 2 paragraphs with Abigail. All right, let's go to the extracts. The extract says, place the extract in context. I believe this is immediately after the girls are sick, Betty being in a coma state, the panic that is happening, the nurse, Rebecca nurse coming in. Yes. So that's the incident that we are coming, that is bringing us into the extracting at 1. The girls' condition, Abigail, Betty's condition as well. So yes, that's what we are talking about. Refer to line 31. It says, pray John, be calm, pause, he defers to her. What does this line reveal about Rebecca's status in the village? Good sense, religious, admired, respected. So I think that's what we're talking about. Yeah, she definitely had a good sense of mind and direction. She definitely was a religious person. She definitely was admired and had a status. Yeah, and was listened to. Her opinion was valued. So definitely that's what we're including. Explain how this extract highlights the hypocrisy of Salem society. When we're talking about Salem society, I think we're bringing in the Puritanism part, whereby they are Puritans and have strict regulations and codes of conduct. But now we are coming in having hysteria about something which is not allowed, which is the dancing in the woods. And I think we realize that there are rules and principles not being followed by the younger generation. So those are the things that we could have brought in. For a strict Puritan society, they are having these issues arising as we open the play. Refer to lines 14 to 15. Line 14 to 15, it says, this is no silly season, Rebecca. That's Mrs. Putnam. My Ruth is bewildered, Rebecca. She cannot eat. Okay. And then the question says, if you were the director of the product, definitely frown on her face, almost in tears, or talking slam shoulders. So that's what we can insert in there. Refer to lines 21 to 22. Let's go to line 21 to 22. Then let you come out and call them wrong. Did you consult the wardens before you called the minister to look for the devils? All right. And then it says, discuss how these lines influence your understanding of Proctor. So when we're coming in and talking about Proctor, hypocrisy in him. He has been doing dishonorable deeds behind, but now he's coming in and finding fault in someone else. Yet he's also one of the people who are doing wrong in society. So I believe that's what we're bringing in now about Proctor, whereby other people are devils, yet he is the devil himself as well because of the sins that he has committed. So that's what we mean. Very, yeah. And then extract J was from 83, refer to line 7 to 8. From the big private, okay, I may shut my conscience to it no more. Private vengeance is working through this testimony. Conscience to it no more. Private vengeance is working through this testimony. What does Hale mean by this comment in the context of the play? That the trials have been carried through based on lies, and he realizes that's a dawning in him that he might have made a mistake in steering the trials in this way, because now he realizes that it is not based on the witchcraft, but it is based on personal vendettas amongst the characters in the witness list. Using this extract as a starting point, comment on Danforth's handling of court proceedings, uses it to his own, for his own benefit, manipulates the trials. Comment on the iron of Danforth's calling Abigail a child. The iron is that there's nothing innocent about Abigail. Abigail is corrupt, Abigail is conniving, Abigail is the problem that has led to this tumultuous trials that have happened, accusing wrong people, innocent people, so as to escape from getting justice for herself, so that she can push her own agenda of pushing Elizabeth off the rod so that she can have Proctor again. So that's the irony. Refer to line 5. She only thought to save my name. Based on your knowledge of the play as a whole, critically discuss the significance of Proctor's statement in the above line. Redemption, it was a redemption strategy. He wanted to prove himself to Elizabeth. Remember, Elizabeth does not trust him anymore.